Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. And my buddy Chris King and I are going to guide you through a very interesting Friday. Before we get there, Chris, any reflections on last night? I know you have a very strong opinion of what might have been different had a certain player not been so effusive in catching a single pass.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Pittsburgh played themselves out of the game in the first half by trailing huge, but they made
nothing, by the way.
Yeah, and they made a game out of it by coming back in the fourth quarter, just like they did last week against Baltimore, and they had a chance in the final minutes with the ball. Had Chase Claypool not decided that he was going to celebrate catching a pass on fourth down to move the chains and then dance around and waste 15 seconds, the Steelers might have tied that game at the end of regulation, and who knows, considering the way Minnesota loves to blow games. We saw them blow it last week against Detroit. Had Claypool not wasted all that time celebrating catching a pass to move the sticks, the Steelers might have had a chance to pull that game out. So way to go, Claypool. You really screwed over the fans of the Steel City. I mean, I'm not a fan of Pittsburgh, but for those of you out there, I feel bad for you based on Claypool's basic ignorance of what was going on as far as the clock goes.
Right. Nothing like being in the moment and understanding. Yeah. It's, you have to wonder when the Vikings get up 29-0, right? And of the games they've played this year, only 2 of the games have not been a one-possession game. So I guess what they were looking for was consistency. And they said, 29-0. No, we don't want to blow anybody out. Let's and you've run the ball for what, 200 and some odd yards.
Yeah.
Okay. And all of a sudden you decide in the second half, well, let's pass it a little bit more.
They basically tried
with 2 interceptions. It's like,
they tried to give the Steelers a chance to get back in the game. I mean, Pittsburgh scored at the end of the third quarter, the very next play. Cousins tries to go downfield and gets picked off. That sets up another score.
Right.
Then they punt after 3 plays, and all of a sudden, with 12 minutes to go, after trailing 29-0 with under 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, now it's a 29-20 game.
Right.
It kind of reminded me of, not to rub it in on Jack Pardee and the Oilers, but the comeback at Rich Stadium when the Oilers were up, of course, 35-3 with 13:46 to go in the third quarter.
Right.
And, I remember vividly the Oilers radio team going, well, the lights are on at Rich Stadium. They've been on since this morning, but you can pretty much turn them out on the Bills now.
Yeah, not so fast.
And I remember Bob Costas at halftime talking in that game about how, Houston will go on to play Pittsburgh and Bill Cowher next week, barring some massive comeback.
And guess what? There was a massive comeback.
Yeah, so either Bob Costas is the amazing Kreskin.
I know him. He's not, but he's a good guy. The thing too is Frank Wright. Was instrumental in the 2 largest comebacks in football history, one in college, obviously the one you just alluded to, plus the comeback that he led when Maryland stunned then number 2 Miami. And
the interesting thing about that one too is the interesting fact about that in that game with Maryland is the quarterback he replaced was another former Bills backup in Stan Gelbaugh.
Right. Oh man. So lots of synergy in that. All right,
exactly.
So on Friday, we know there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but not so much in college basketball. So you've got some very interesting picks coming up, and I want you all to pay attention. We have said throughout this entire time, this is Chris's theory of the case, and I tend to agree, that sometimes value comes in conferences and teams that you don't necessarily hear about often, but that doesn't mean they're not worth looking into. And let's begin with one of those scenarios with our first college game on the docket.
Exactly. It's the Kansas City Ruse. Well, I know that some of you are like, where in the world are these people coming from? Well, they play in the Summit League, and you might have used to know them as the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and they were the Kangaroos. They're going to be at home tonight at the Swinney Recreation Center as they take on the Green Bay Phoenix of the Horizon League.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Green Bay is 2-6 this year, and they've lost their lone road game 72-34 at Wisconsin. Kansas City, they're 4-4 on the year, but they do own a road win over a Missouri team that is expected to be at least a middle-of-the-road team in the SEC. To go on the road and beat Quanzo Martin, you can't sneeze about that, and they won by double digits in that game. Green Bay, 3/10 in effective field goal percentage at 44.4%. They're 338th in three-point shooting. They're 337th in scoring offense at 61.5 points a game. Kansas City, 93rd in effective field goal percentage, 88th in three-point shooting. Green Bay, 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 on the road after 3 or more games at home. Kansas City, 6-0 in their last 6 after allowing less than 50 points in their last game. They're 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 as a favorite, 4-0 in their last 4 as a home favorite, and 6-0 in their last 6 against teams with a winning percentage below 400. Now, I know, like I said, you're wondering, why are we talking about Kansas City? Well, A, it's Friday. There's not a ton of big games on the college basketball circuit. And B, like we told you before, there's a lot of teams in the mid-majors where you can steal value because nobody knows who these teams are because all they watch are power conferences. Look for the Roos to take this one by double figures as Green Bay struggles to score once again.
Just so we break this breaking news, there really is no truth to the rumor that Kansas City is attempting to get an Australian rules football team because they are the Roos. But we'll see. We'll keep up to date on that one.
That's the kind of breaking news bulletins you can only get here, folks. You can't get this stuff anywhere
else. Nobody in their right mind would do the kind of stuff we do.
And John, good to see you. I'm still waiting for my belt. Where is it?
John's in the house.
It's glad to see you made it, early. I know we're early today, but like we said, Jim has some stuff to take care of this afternoon.
Some rolling
We're glad to have you here with us live.
That's right. By the way, let's contractually obligated, I should say. The important thing to remember, John and everybody else out there, if you like what we're doing, and we love having you as part of the family here, smash that like button and hit the subscribe button, and that way you'll know if we accidentally have to change starting times. It'll come right to your email box, and you go, "Oh, okay, cool. I can be there now." So do that.
Right,
first.
the belt's in New Jersey with Purdue. Well, nobody said that Purdue was going to decide that they didn't want to play offense. The team that averages 90 points a game, scoring 68 against a Rutgers team that's not very good. And I think Ron Harper must have listened to the show because I said that he could score 50 and they'd still lose. So he decided to hit that ridiculous three-pointer at the end of the game just to screw everybody over.
What's the most surprising thing in that Ron Harper Jr. hits the winning shot or that Purdue's number one?
Well, number one's been such a hot potato so far this season.
Right, yeah,
I can't fault Harper for hitting that because obviously it's in his bloodline.
Right.
But I didn't think Matt Painter's team would be a number one team at this point of the season.
Right.
So I would probably have to lean towards Purdue just because of the fact that everybody thought it was going to be Gonzaga, then we thought it was going to be Duke who's going to stay number one, and we've seen, but look at all these teams that we've seen lose. We saw Alabama lose to Iona. It was the first top 10 win for a MAC school. We've seen Dayton beat Kansas.
Saw Florida get beat.
Yeah, we saw Florida get stomped by Texas Southern.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of ripples of uncertainty in the opening month of college basketball, and you have to think those things will shake out as the season wears on. But it was a rough night last night for Matt Painter and Purdue. I think they, as Steen would say, they played with their food too much, and the food came back and bit them.
Yeah. It's kind of like a NASCAR race. Look at it this way, guys. It's kind of like a NASCAR race. It doesn't really matter. They're going to have lead changes all race long. But in the final 5 or 6 laps of the race, things start to come about. So for right now, we're in the early stages of a NASCAR race. There's going to be different leaders. And at the end of the day, whoever wins will have earned it. Or there will be a crash in the front and they'll sneak in. One way or another, we're going to have a champion at the end of the season. Will it be Purdue? Will it be Gonzaga? Will it be Duke? Stay tuned. We'll keep you posted.
And, John, if anybody knows about underestimating people, you underestimated Carlito 15 years ago when you lost the U.S. belt. So there you go.
It is what it is. All right, guys. We're moving on this time.
Right, we're gonna go to the Music City, and it's a surprising matchup as Loyola Chicago. Everybody loves Sister Jean.
Yeah, who doesn't?
A 4.5 point favorite as they go on the road to take on Jerry Stackhouse's Vanderbilt team, and we just talked about teams with a player with a bloodline. Vanderbilt's got Scottie Pippen Jr. I don't know why he calls him Junior when he spells Scotty with a Y, and Scotty Senior did not.
Right.
But Loyola Chicago, they're 8-2 on the season for Drew Valentine. Vanderbilt 5-3. Loyola Chicago's 2 losses this year were to Michigan State and Auburn. They do own wins over Arizona State on a neutral floor, and they beat Depaul on the road. That's Depaul's only loss this season, and we'll get to that in a minute too. That's called foreshadowing, kids. Vanderbilt's lost 2 in a row. Loyola Chicago is dangerous on the offensive end of the floor. They're third in effective field goal percentage at 59.2%. They're 8th in three-point shooting at 41.1%. They are 15th shooting inside the arc at 57.4%. They are 7-1-3 in their last 11 on the road against teams with a winning home record. They're 7-1-3 in their last 11 on the road, period. They are 6-1-2 in their last 9 as a road favorite, 6-1-3 in their last 10 on the road against teams with a home winning percentage greater than 600. Vanderbilt just 1-4-1 against the spread in their last 6 on Friday. Vanderbilt lost to Temple the other day in overtime at home. That doesn't overly impress me. Temple, I liked when Fran Dunphy was there. I liked when, obviously when John Chaney was there, especially when he tried to threaten to kill John Calipari. Aaron McKee.
The memories.
Aaron McKee, he was a great player at Temple. He's still got some work to do as a coach. He's got to get some more players in there. But, they did beat Vanderbilt, and because of that, I have to fade the Commodores at home. I like the way Loyola Chicago's played. They're a veteran team. They play good, cohesive team basketball. There is no one player that is bigger than the rest of the team, and that's something that we usually see in the SEC with those bottom of the end teams like Vanderbilt, where Pippen is going to shoulder most of the load. They don't have Dylan Disu anymore after he transferred last offseason, and that's been a common trend for Vanderbilt. They cultivate a good player, and then they leave. Darius Garland was a prime example when he just jumped to go to the NBA. Disu transferred to Texas Tech. Now it's just the Scottie Pippen show. And as good as Pippen is, and this is probably going to burn me just like it burned me yesterday with Harper, Pippen can score 40 points, and Vanderbilt will still lose by 6 because there's nobody else you can rely on.
Maybe you should have just said 39. Maybe that would have changed the
he'll score 30. He'll score 37.5.
There you go. The Memorial Gym at Vanderbilt is a cool place if you've never been there or if you've watched it on TV. It's actually the floor is actually raised. So there's about a 3-inch, like a stage situation where the benches are actually below court level. And it's unique. And I can assure you that there are a lot of players who hate it because if they go off the court, they literally smack themselves, trip off the court. It's crazy. But Memorial Gymnasium, Vanderbilt, it's worth, when you watch the game at Vandy on TV, it's kind of worth watching to see, the quirks of that court. And there's plenty to be seen. So that being said, we move on. And this time, it's Depaul and the Cardinals of Louisville.
To, what is it, the KFC Yum Center now?
Yummy, yes.
They can't just come up with one freaking name. They got to, change it every other week. But Depaul, I'm taking them on the road over Louisville, which is surprising. I know everybody's like, well, Louisville's an ACC team. Yeah, but Louisville's also lost at home to Furman in overtime this season. DePaul's lone loss this year was to Loyola Chicago. And look, they own a win over Rutgers. So by de facto, they could be the number 1 team in the country right now.
They should be.
Yes. After all, they beat Rutgers. Rutgers beat Purdue. So that's like,
follow my logic.
Yes. Exactly. So you should put DePaul at number 1 in your rankings. Anyway, Louisville beat NC State on the road Tuesday night, but they lost to Michigan State on the road last week. And like I said, they lost at home to Furman. The Paladins are a good team. Don't get me wrong. They play well in the SoCon. But there's still a SoCon team that went to an ACC building and beat you. I don't know what else.
More.
Yeah. DePaul, 37th in effective field goal percentage, or 33rd shooting inside the arc. And Tony Stubblefield has done a really good job. They're 11th in the nation in scoring average with 85.3 points a game. Now, Louisville, if you look, they're 264th in field goal percentage at 42.2%. They are 287th in three-point shooting, and they're just 216th at the line. So they're leaving points out there on the floor by the bucket load. Depaul's 3-0-1 against the spread in the last 4 overall. They're 4-1-1 after a straight-up win. Louisville just 5-15-2 in their last 22 games after an ATS victory. They are 1-4 in their last 5 at home after 3 or more games away from Louisville. And they are also just 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 at home. Louisville could and should win this game, but you can't count out DePaul with the way they're playing basketball right now. Take the points in the Blue Demons as they try to put together an 8th win in 9 games to start the year.
I have to say that as a fan of college basketball, it's great to see DePaul back as a relevant team. Because
now, whether they keep that up in conference play is another story, because they tend to play well non-conference and then struggle in the Big East.
Right, that's true. But I'm just saying it's good to see the DePaul brand have some relevancy again, because there was, it fell off the face of the earth there for a period of time, and it's good to see it back. As they get a lot of Chicago kids who they can keep home and play there and play at DePaul. So. Good on them.
If they can keep them away from Northwestern, that's always a win too.
Yeah. Well, right now, I mean, you earlier in your picks had Loyola Chicago involved, and
that's true too.
Yeah, so you've got Loyola Chicago and DePaul and Northwestern, all 3 in the same city, all 3 competing just to keep some of the best kids in Chicago in town. So
hoping they don't go somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure. So, which there's that pipeline just up north that heads them to Michigan or Michigan State, which, they've been known to sneak down to Chicago and grab some players down there as well. So I know there's 3 good schools in the city of Chicago, all of whom hoping to keep them keep the best players in town. And so we'll hope that the Blue Demons tonight get a win over a tough team, that they shouldn't, as you just said, they shouldn't lose to them, but hopefully they will, or at least cover the spread.
Right. I mean, this obviously isn't a Denny Crum coach team at Louisville that we're used to seeing, for such a long stretch of time.
Or even Rick Pitino.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from Chris Mack, but I mean, the fact remains that they've had a tough time recruiting in recent years, and they've had a lot of decent players leave, and it's going to be an uphill battle. I mean, like I said, they should win this game, but I'm not counting out DePaul with the way they've scored so far this season.
Mm-hmm. Or counting on DePaul losing by 8 points or more.
Right.
So. All right, so we've hit the hardwood. Is it time yet to go to the ice?
Yes, it is.
All right.
And we're going to start with everybody's favorite doormat. That's right, folks, the Arizona Coyotes.
Is there such a thing as a homecoming game in hockey? Because the old saying, you always would schedule somebody you could beat on homecoming. So for the Panthers down in Sunrise, maybe this is homecoming.
Well, except they get to go to Glendale for this.
Oh, well then my bad.
But so they get to enjoy the weather anyway.
True.
But
Not bad either way.
Arizona, they were concerned earlier this week they might get locked out of their own arena because they had to pay back $350,000 in taxes. At least they got that squared away, but the fact remains they're still not a very good hockey team. Florida, second in the league with 3.8 goals per game. Arizona, 1.76 goals per game. They are dead last in the league in that category. The Coyotes 1-5 in their last 6, giving up 24 goals in that stretch. If you take out their one win, where they won 1-0, they've allowed 24 goals in their last 5 losses. Florida's 3-3-4 on the road. Arizona's 2-7-1 at home. Florida's won 5 of their last 6 against Central Division teams. They're 4-1 in their last 5 on 2 days of rest. They're 40-13 in their last 53 games as a favorite. Arizona 1-9 in their last 10 against Eastern Conference teams. 1-5 in their last 6 as a home underdog. 0-4 in their last 4 on Friday. Florida's won 6 of the last 8 matchups between these teams. Let's face it, we've told you to fade Arizona repeatedly. They got beat 7-1 by Vegas last week. They got beat 4-1 by Dallas earlier this week. Florida is angry after losing in a shootout in St. Louis the other night, 4-3. Arizona is happy if they can score 3 in a week, much less in one game. You have to look for Florida to take advantage of the lack of offensive production from the Coyotes and skate away with a road win to reestablish themselves atop the Atlantic Division, which currently is a 3-way tie between them, Toronto, and Tampa Bay, all with 38 points.
As a public service, I feel that it is my job to tell the people in the greater Phoenix area who might be considering going to the game. Plenty of good seats are still available. So,
or we could just make it easier for you. The Suns are playing at home tonight. Go watch them.
That's another possibility. Okay.
John, Edmonton killed a lot of people last night because they decided they didn't want to play until the third period, and then they decided after they tied the game up that they were just happy with that and gave up a winning goal.
Right. So we got our point. Let's get out of here. The thing that I was going to say, ironically, when you're talking about the Suns being at home, those are the two cities in the country where both the NBA and the NHL play in different buildings. So it's kind of a very unique situation. Arizona, Phoenix has their own building, and so does the Arizona Coyotes. And then in Miami, you've got the Heat playing in their building, and over in Sunrise, you've got them playing with the Panthers playing. So
now, how far is Sunrise from Miami? Because I
10 miles.
Is that all it is?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because
Sunrise is a suburb. It's a suburb. To be honest, it's kind of like 20 miles out of Phoenix proper, where in the case of Sunrise, it's maybe 10 miles maybe out of downtown Miami. It's just an area closer to the Everglades where they built a building, and I don't understand why, because having both the hockey team and the basketball team in the same arena is usually the way things are done. But
I don't remember Crockett and Tubbs ever saying they were going to Sunrise on Miami Vice.
That's because Sunrise didn't exist when Miami Vice was there. It's one of those planned communities that suddenly they carved out of the area around the Everglades. So yeah, Sunrise is not necessarily a fun place to go, but hey, if you're going to go out and watch some hockey, go there. But they're not there tonight. They're as Chris aptly put.
You can drive by and see the building, though.
You're right. There's probably a concert there because that's where they make most of their money is with the concerts. So you might be go out there see Bruno Mars or somebody at the at Sunrise. Meanwhile, out in Glendale, your hockey team's playing. So there you go. So I think we beat that one to death. My apologies to.
We've probably beaten Arizona to death too, but as Bob Uecker would say in Major League when they talk about that's all we got, one hit.
That's right.
You can't say that on the radio. Nobody's listening anyway.
That's true. Here we go. Going to the next one.
All right, and we're going to go to Vancouver. It's a battle of Western Canadian teams as the Jets go to take on the Canucks. And I'm looking for this one to stay under 6 goals when you get right down to it. The Jets have gone 13-11-2 with the under this season. Vancouver has stayed under the number 17 times in 27 games. That includes both of their games under Bruce Boudreau, who's 2-0. He should quit while he's ahead. I'm telling you. Bruce, take the money and run.
Yep.
Save yourself the headache. They've only given up 1 goal in those 2 games as they shut out the Kings and allowed 1 goal to Boston in a shootout win. Winnipeg playing the second game of a back-to-back. They blanked Seattle 3-0 on the road Thursday night. Vancouver's seen the undergo 8-2 in their last 10 games. Winnipeg has seen the undergo 4-0-1 in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. It's also 7-2 in Winnipeg's last 9 after giving up 2 goals or less. It's 7-2 in their last 9 when their opponent scores 2 goals or less in their previous game. And if you look at that, Vancouver has seen the undergo 10-1-1 in their last 12 games as a home favorite. It's 25-4 in Vancouver's last 29 games at home. And in the last 5 meetings between these teams, the under is hit in 4 of them. With Winnipeg being tired and Vancouver suddenly learning how to play defense, this one looks like a 2-1, 3-2 type of hockey, maybe 3-1 type of hockey game that falls short of the mark.
Well, so there you go.
Now, do you trust Bruce Boudreau right now, Jim? If you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, or is this just a mirage and they'll come crashing back to earth?
Eventually, they will. I don't know. I think that sometimes it's strange, and I think the NHL is probably unique in that they fire coaches more often early in a season than any sport I've ever seen. So, sometimes it just takes a different voice in the locker room. Somebody who comes in and somebody that you believe in, where the other guy didn't have your ear anymore. So it's odd in hockey where you'll change a coach after a month or two in, and that sometimes you get a good result out of it. Sometimes you don't, but I don't see that a lot in the NBA or in Major League Baseball, or certainly for football. It just doesn't.
That's true, because we did talk about whether we thought Travis Green had lost the locker room before he was fired.
Sure.
So you have to wonder if maybe you're right. Maybe they needed to have a different voice in there. And Boudreau is a veteran guy who's going to make people accountable for what happens on and off the ice with that franchise.
Yeah, I mean, he's very much a player's coach in so much as he listens. His door's always open, but he's also, he also is a taskmaster who expects the top players to play, and if they're not, they're sitting on the bench watching somebody else play. So I don't know. As I said,
also a smart move bringing in Jim Rutherford to take over the GM role there, because he's another guy with a proven track record. I mean, he hasn't had as much success lately, but obviously he can. If there's a guy that can put together a team, he's near the top of the list. Somebody you want to go out and get. He's
absolutely up there. So I don't know. For right now, as Jones said the other day, I'm going to roll with him till the wheels fall off. But we'll see how it goes. Meanwhile, back on the ice, we're going the Rangers. Boy, I'll tell you what, you've been on the Rangers all week.
I did go against them Wednesday, and they did get curb stomped by Colorado because they were playing the second game of back-to-back. So, but yeah, they're going on the road. They're going to the KeyBank Center to play Buffalo tonight, and that first line pretty much tells you everything you need to know. Buffalo 3-13-2 in their last 18 games after starting the year 5-2. Rangers won 8 of 10, even after getting beaten soundly by Colorado the other night. In that game, the Rangers decide not to start Alexander Georgiev in back-to-back games. They started Adam Huska, who they then sent back down after he was obviously bad as he gave up 7 goals. The Rangers 7-0-1 in the last 8 meetings between these two teams. They're 5-0 in the third game of their last 3 games in 4-night situations. They've won 12 of their last 13 against Eastern Conference teams. They've won 8 of their last 9 against the Atlantic Division. Buffalo 1-6 in their last 7 as a home underdog, 1-6 against Eastern Conference teams, 1-6 in their last 7 at home. Casey Middlestat was placed on IR. They think he may have re-aggravated the injury he had before. Craig Anderson has now been moved from day to day to month with his injury, taking the veteran goaltender out of the mix for Buffalo. Also out Dustin Tokarski, who took a puck to the face last week in practice and is in the COVID protocols. That leaves Buffalo with the great goaltending tandem of Aaron Dell and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who took the loss the other night against Anaheim. It all boils down to the Sabres aren't playing very well. You can't fault Don Granato when he has no players to work with. The Rangers are a hot team. They beat Buffalo 5-4 earlier this season in a game that we talked about in the pre-show, where the Rangers scored the winning goal with 0.1 seconds left in regulation. It shouldn't take that late for them to score the winner in this one. They win on the road. Buffalo continues to spiral down. But on the bright side, hey, they play in the Atlantic Division where the bottom 2 teams are Montreal and Ottawa, so they don't have to worry about being the worst team in the league right now.
There you go. Quick question, and we have so many new people who are new to sports gambling. I mean, we've got 27 states now that it's legal, so there's a lot of people who are, used to putting down some money on a football pool or something like that. Explain what you mean when you say the Rangers minus 165 at the time.
All right. What that means is, in order for you to win $100, you would have to bet 165. So you bet 165 to gain 100 in profit. On the flip side, if let me see what the line is for that game, because I know it was some ungodly number. It is currently now the line's actually gone up, where now the Rangers are now at minus 180. But in that case, you would bet 180 to win 100. Buffalo goes off at plus 155 at the moment, where if you were to bet 100 and Buffalo were to win outright, you would win $155 in addition to what you bet originally. I try to stay away from once the money lines get too high, because you don't want to end up having to throw out a ridiculous amount of money to recoup roughly half of what you would have made. So once it gets anywhere near 200 minus 200, I tend to shy away from, just because they're basically sucker bets, because they're basically taking your money. That's why I didn't touch Florida with the straight up on the money line over Arizona, because that line currently sits at Florida at minus 323.
So
Arizona's going at plus 250. Or actually, it's now gone to Florida minus 350, Arizona plus 275.
So that's if you bet with the book.
Correct.
They're charging the juice on it to say, okay, this team is such a prohibitive favorite. You put this down, you're going to have to pay this to win, as you just said, win back not just the initial bet, but just pick up a few dollars on the other side.
Right. I mean, at minus 350, I mean, if you bet $100, you'd get back 35. I mean,
that's not, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not even very good at math at all, but I can figure that out. That's not a good deal.
That's why it's always fun at the beginning of college football when you see when you see the games where it's like, the cupcake weeks, where it's like Alabama facing, Little Sisters of the Poor, and they're going off at minus, 150,000.
Right. It's like, good luck on
and
that.
You're like, who in the world's going to bet on that?
Right. Well, here we go. We're going to
Colorado, the Ball Arena, which I forgot was no longer the Pepsi Center.
Right.
But that's all right. They're playing the Red Wings tonight, and I like the Avalanche minus 1.5 goals which means they have to win by at least 2 over Detroit. Colorado 7-2-1 at home. Detroit 4-8-1 on the road. And this is an explosive Colorado offense. They lead the league with 4.26 goals a game. We just saw them hang 7 on the Rangers. Before that, they hung 7 on the Flyers and 5 on Ottawa. So in their last 3 games, they've scored 19 goals. Meanwhile, Detroit's playing the second game of a back-to-back. They lost 6-2 against St. Louis on the road Thursday. Detroit only scores 2.38 goals per game on the road, while allowing nearly 4 goals a night. They are 11-41 in their last 52 after a loss by at least 3 goals. They are 14-59 in their last 73 on the road. Meanwhile, Colorado 6-0 in their last 6 when their opponent gives up 5 goals or more. They are 4-0 in their last 4 home games after a road trip of at least 7 days. They're 41-13 in their last 54 against teams with a losing record. Colorado has won the last 6 meetings between these teams, and each of the last 4 meetings in Denver. Colorado also getting a boost this week with the return of Darcy Kemper. He played Wednesday night against the Rangers after missing more than a week with an upper body injury. It all adds up to not much fun for the Motor City boys as they go up to the thin air of Denver, and Colorado keeps rolling those lines, keeps lighting the lamp, and clips the Red Wings at home.
Good news, by the way, for those of you out in the Colorado area. It looks like Altitude Sports, which is the home of your Avalanche, has just struck a deal with Comcast, so they'll actually be able to see these games out there, which recently they haven't been able to. So a little.
I don't understand what the deal is with all these providers and having issues with channels like that, because I know you see that happen all the time with local channels too, where they don't want to hammer out the subscription rights and everything, where they think that they're worth more than they are. Well,
Altitude Sports is there's 2 regional sports networks in the Colorado area, in the Denver area, One is Root Sports, which is now owned by AT&T, and the other is Altitude, which is owned by Stan Kroenke, who owns the team as well as owning, of course, the Rams.
And the Nuggets, right? Or does he not own the Nuggets anymore?
He has money in the Nuggets. He's not. I don't know if he owns the whole team, but anyway.
Either way, he owns half of Colorado, basically.
Right. He owns half of Colorado. He's got a big stadium in Los Angeles with a football team. So Kroenke's, trying to extract $4 per subscriber at the same time that, AT&T/Root Sports is trying to, get the same amount of money. Cable companies, because people are cutting the cord, are certainly, reticent now to pay a higher fee because they have to pass that on to the consumer. So it's a bit of a mess, to say the least. So hopefully, Avs fans, you're going to be able to see your team again and not be blacked out by a battle between a major cable company that makes billions of dollars over an owner who makes billions of dollars. So we'll see how the little people end up getting screwed in the long run. But long story short, Avs fans can watch their games in the greater Colorado area. Good news for them.
That is a good news. I mean, you always hate to have fans being locked out of seeing their own team play in their home market.
Right. So there you go. All right. So let's move on, and we're at the association now.
Yep.
The Bucks and the Rockets.
Yep. Down at the Toyota Center. All of a sudden, Houston decided they wanted to play basketball. I mean, we wrote them off when they were 1-16, but somehow they've won 7 straight games. I think that's going to come to an end tonight because, they're facing a Milwaukee team that has won 8 of 10. Granted, they lost on the road to Miami the other night in a game where the Heat played without Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler and Shaq and LeBron and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade.
Right.
But, as well as Houston's played of late, I still don't have faith in them. They don't have Daniel House. They won't have Kevin Porter tonight. John Wall obviously has still decided he's not going to play basketball this season and just stay home and collect his money. Jalen Green also out for Houston. Houston's just 26th in scoring defense. They're 22nd in scoring offense. So you wonder, how are they winning games? Meanwhile, the Bucks are 9th in scoring offense at 110.3 points per game. They're getting healthier. Giannis Antetokounmpo is back. Jrue Holiday is back. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. They're 6-2 in their last 8 as a road favorite. Houston, despite this massive win streak, they're 15-36 against the spread in their last 51 at home. They are 8-17 in their last 25 at home against teams with a winning road record. Yeah, I get it. Houston beat the Nets the other night. The Nets were playing the second game of back-to-back. They're not that fortunate tonight, as Milwaukee was off yesterday. I expect Houston to see that 7-game win streak come to an end as the Greek Freak carries the Bucks to a road victory and puts Houston back to mission control.
Houston, we have a problem, and it's Milwaukee. So, okay, we talked about early in the show about how it's kind of tough to find college basketball on Friday night. It is not tough at all to find the association on Friday night. They love to play Friday night, and we had one good game, which we just spoke about. Let's move on to it's the Cavaliers and the Timberwolves.
Yep. And hold on one second, Jerry. Yeah, I know Houston covered the last 3 against Milwaukee, but you're also looking at a Houston team that does not have the scoring depth that you need to keep up with a team like the Bucks. Christian Wood, yeah, he's played well, but now who else are you going to rely on in crunch time against a team like Milwaukee that has so many weapons to deal with? I get the Rockets have won 7 straight, but all good things come to an end. Just ask Joel Embiid last night. I don't trust a team that's 8-16 after starting 1-16. That's just my opinion. I mean, they could turn around and cover. I'm not going to say they won't. But I like the Bucks here just because Houston is inefficient offensively. Well, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just don't trust the Rockets. Like I said, 22nd in scoring, 26th in scoring defense. It doesn't bode well most nights. I mean, they beat Brooklyn, but Brooklyn was a gas team.
Well, the other thing that we all want to consider is this is why they call it gambling. One person's going to see it one way, the other's person's going to see it the other way. Sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. If it was otherwise, it would just be the Charlie Sheen line, which of course is winning. And we all know that Charlie hasn't been winning that much. So meanwhile, back to the Cavs and the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yep, this game coming to you from the Target Center in Minnesota. Cleveland's won 5 of 7. They've actually covered each of their last 7 games because of those 2 losses in that stretch. They covered against Utah and Milwaukee. They covered the Milwaukee game by half a point. Minnesota dropped 4 in a row. They were drubbed 136-104 by Utah Wednesday night. Cleveland, second in the league in scoring defense at 102 points per game. Think about that. Cleveland playing defense. The Cavaliers also 4-0 after a straight-up win. They are 4-0 in their last 4 after a straight-up win by double figures, and they're 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 on the road. Cleveland also 13-3 in their last 16 when their opponent gives up at least 100 points. Minnesota just 1-4 in their last 5 overall against the spread, 1-4 in their last 5 at home against teams with a winning percentage greater than 600, and they are also 0-4 after a double-digit home loss. D'Angelo Russell, a question mark tonight with an ankle injury. Jalen Noel, also questionable. Obviously, Colin Sexton out for the Cavaliers, but Cleveland has played excellent defense, and for God's sake, I can't figure out how. Jared Allen has played really well in the low block. He'll have his hands full of Karl Anthony Towns. But overall, Cleveland has found ways to win games.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota has not. They got drubbed. I think it was 72 to 41 in the second half by Utah the other night. I'd like Cleveland to go on the road and pull out another victory, which is scary because I faded Cleveland earlier this week against the Bulls when they were actually favored, and they went on to win 115-92 over the Central Division leading Chicago Bulls.
Quick question for us, and that is from Garrett. Wanting to know about the Zephyrs.
Which Zephyrs are we talking about? Are we talking about the old New Orleans Zephyrs? They used to be the Denver Zephyrs of the American Association,
or a college team, or just Zephyrs in
I always, if we're talking about Zephyrs, the wind, you always bet on the Zephyrs.
Well, while we're waiting for Garrett to tell us which Zephyrs he's talking about, we'll move on.
All right, and we'll go to north of the border. It's the Knicks going on the road against the Raptors in an Atlantic Division tilt. The Knicks 18th in scoring offense, but they're 7th in three-point shooting this year at 36.4%. Toronto's lost 4 of their last 6, including a disappointing 110-109 home loss the other night to Oklahoma City in a game that was just disturbing when you get right down to it. Toronto blew a fourth-quarter lead in that game to drop to 4-9 on the road or at home court this season, which is disturbing when you get right down to it. The next lines pretty much tell you Knicks 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 on the road against teams with a losing home record. Toronto 3-14-1 against the spread in their last 18 at home. That's just not profitable when you get right down to it. You're supposed to win on your own floor, not just give games away, which the Raptors have done repeatedly this season. They are 2-9 in their last 11 after scoring 100 points or more. Toronto 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 on one day of rest. They are 1-6 in their last 7 at home against teams with a winning road record. I mean, the Knicks are below 500 overall, but they're 7-5 on the road. Toronto 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. Take the points and the Knicks and look for a big game from Julius Randle. As Toronto, I don't know what's up with them. I mean, sure, they don't have – it's not the team of before. They don't have Kyle Lowry. Goran Dragic has been out with a personal issue for a couple of weeks now. Pascal Siakam is back. Fred VanVleet's back. I mean, I know they missed OG Anunoby for a bit with a hip issue, but I mean, is this going to be another case, Jim, where like we talked about with Bruce Boudreau taking over Vancouver. Are they starting to tune out Nick Nurse, or are they just struggling for other reasons?
I wonder because, they're not that far removed from a championship.
Right.
It's not like, it's not like, well, they won a championship 10 years ago. No, they did. They won a championship 4 years ago. And it's just, they had they had everything going in their way. The Great North, they had the fans on their side. They had rock in the building. I mean, it was hard to go to Toronto and win at all, let alone, consistently. And they were always in the playoff hunt. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is a situation where it's time where they need another coach to come in and bust things up a little bit.
It seems like things have shifted since they had to play down in the Amalie Arena last year.
Yeah, they've got. Yeah, the post-COVID situation has not been good. Maybe they should have stayed at the Amalie Arena. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they need some of that lightning, to rub off on them from Tampa Bay.
Get lightning strike twice.
Lightning strike twice in the same building. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing, Chris, because you look at it and you say, gosh, you wish, these are good teams and it's a good franchise and it's in a city where they love basketball. So why would you hope that they not do better? But they just don't seem to do it. And it's a shame because, when basketball is doing well in Canada, that's good for the league.
Right.
And when they're not, that's not good for the league. So we'll see. Time to go for two for the money.
Yes, it is. And if you were with us yesterday, that panned out. We told you to take Anaheim over Columbus on the road. They won in a shootout 2-1. And we told you to take Utah -3 over Philadelphia, and the Jazz rolled to a 118-96 win over Joel Embiid and the 76ers. So we're going to look to – that's the third time this week we've had at least a two-teamer hit, and we're going to look to build on that here tonight. Like I said, I like Florida with the puck line -1.5 over Arizona. We've beaten Arizona to the ground, and I feel bad for the 3 Coyotes fans out there in the world because we've completely run your team, over. But, the bottom line is they're not very good. And like I said, Winnipeg versus Vancouver, I look to stay under 6. Boudreau all of a sudden has his team playing defense, and that's a scary concept considering I'm pretty sure that everybody in British Columbia is allergic to defense. So maybe they got some allergy shots or something. I like the Bucks over the Rockets. Like I said, we talked about that before. And I like Loyola Chicago going on the road and taking care of Vanderbilt. Like we said, Drew Valentine's done a great job with that team taking over where Porter Mosier left off. And they're basically playing the same way we've seen them play for the last few years when they made that run to the Final Four a couple years ago that brought Sister Jean to the forefront.
Right.
And with, the way the Ramblers play basketball, they play team basketball. And, we talk about it all the time. There is no I in team, but there's an M and an E. But that's not the way that the Ramblers play. And it gives them the advantage over a lot of these teams because you get one or two guys that tend to predominantly hog the basketball. And that's not the case.
The other thing, too, is that when you've got a mid-major like that, you have fewer kids that head from the mid-major to the NBA early, and you have fewer kids that transfer to the transfer portal. As a matter of fact, you benefit in many ways from the transfer portal. So, this is one of those teams where you sit back and go, okay, cool, I can see. I mean, and they almost made it back to the Final Four a couple times. So it's not like they're not consistently good.
Right, and I mean that's a good point that you pointed out too. Is you don't see these guys playing 1 year at Drake or Loyola Chicago or insert any other mid-major program here. I mean, the closest thing you would call a mid-major where guys jump is Gonzaga, and the way they play, they can win a bunch of power conferences with the team that Mark Few has out there in Spokane. But
there's actually some conversation of them joining the Pac-12 only as a basketball school.
That would be interesting.
Never came to fruition because the Pac decided they wanted full everybody in, right? But I frankly think that where they're playing is the best possible thing for them to be in a league, where you're playing predominantly Pacific Coast teams and predominantly teams you can beat.
Yeah, I mean, BYU is a good team. St. Mary's is a good team too. But I
Right.
mean, Gonzaga is still, head and shoulders above those two teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you've got a bunch of other teams in there, that
Right.
are.
But they do play, to their credit, they do play a very competitive out of conference schedule.
That's
Really.
true. I mean, you've already seen them play Texas. You've seen them play Duke.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're not. And I always love throwing in that Gene Smith quote. They're not playing the little sisters of the poor. They beat
No.
UCLA on the road.
Right.
Or on a neutral floor. They were beaten by Alabama. They were beaten by Duke. But I mean, nobody's gonna blink an eye if you lose to those two teams.
Mm-mm.
It's
And
not like you're losing to Elkhorn State or Portland.
Right. And Mark Few, one of the things that I think makes him so successful is he understands that if they play those teams and then they go and play conference and then they go into the tournament, they now have played those kind of teams, and they're understanding that, okay, we played some of the top teams. We're going to see them again in the tournament, or we may see them again in the tournament. And so you're not as awestruck as you might be when you look across the, look at the other side, and the other side has Duke on it. It's no fear from that standpoint any longer.
Right.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So 2 for the money, 4 for the show.
Yep, and I'll get to that one second. John, yeah, the bet of the day is coming up. I will put it in at the end of the show. You should do a hype video and promote it. That way, that way we can use your music too. The champ is here. Yeah, I'm going to go with Kansas City -7.5 over Green Bay. We talked about it at the start. Green Bay is just 2-6 this season. Kansas City, they already beat Missouri on the road. They play pretty well at home. I don't think I have to say a whole lot about a team that averages 61.5 points a game like the Phoenix do. Colorado facing another Horizon League team. They're favored by 13.5 at home over Milwaukee. Tad Boyle has done some really nice things with Colorado in the last couple of years. I think that they should have no problem taking care of the Panthers. I like the Nets +1 on the road over the Hawks. Brooklyn's going to be hell-bent on avenging that horrible showing the other night against Houston where they were basically blown out of the Toyota Center in the first half. The Hawks minus DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan Bogdanovich. I always have to remember which one it is because Bojan plays in Utah. And it's always fun to say Bogdanovich. And then I like the Capitals at home at the Capital One Center over the Penguins. As Alex Ovechkin probably lights the lamp again. He seems to do that on a regular basis. He's now gone over the 750 goal mark in his career. Look for him to get the better of Tristan Jarry and the Penguins, especially with Jake Gunsel now added to the lengthy list of the walking wounded for the Steel City Penguins.
It's funny, the Capitals and the Penguins, for the better part of over a decade now, since Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin have came into the league approximately at the same time. It's every year. Those two teams do not like each other, play each other very hard, usually see each other in the playoffs. And so even games in the middle of in the middle of December have some relevance from a standpoint of how the fans react to each other, whether they're playing in Pittsburgh, whether they're playing in DC. So that's always an entertaining game, if nothing else. So if you got nothing else to do tonight, a Caps game against the Penguins is always going to be entertaining. It's kind of like Pittsburgh and the Baltimore Ravens. There's a definite dislike between those two teams. Mutual respect, but definitely the dislike. So it might be a fun one in the NHL tonight if you happen to have an opportunity to see it. Meanwhile, what would a show be without Chris's? We're going to put everything on the wall and you pick it, and here it is.
Yeah, these are
so crazy, folks. Yeah.
Yep, we got the Rangers and the Sabres. I look to stay under 6 just because the Rangers don't need to pile up 85 goals to beat Buffalo with the way they've played lately. Like we said, Buffalo 3-13-2 in their last 18 games. New Jersey, I like at home over Nashville. Nashville won last night over Barry Trotz and the Islanders, who dropped to 0-5-2 at the UBS Arena. You had to feel bad for Trotz as Nashville scored the winning goal with 11 and a half seconds left in regulation to win 4-3. Even with that said, the Predators are now playing the second game of back-to-back. New Jersey coming in off a 3-0 shutout of the Flyers earlier this week. Mackenzie Blackwood has played very well in goal for the Devils. They also have Jack Hughes back. Look for New Jersey to take that one. Florida and Arizona, I look to stay under 6 because, hey, this game could be 5-0 in favor of Florida, and that still is under 6. I expect it to be a 4-1 type of game. Same with, like we said, Winnipeg and Vancouver. I look to stay under 6 goals. The Jets playing the second game of a back-to-back. Vancouver allowing just 1 goal in their last 2 games under Bruce Boudreau. Thatcher Demko has looked rejuvenated, and as long as the Canucks don't decide to go to Yaroslav Halak, I look for that one to be a low-scoring affair. Speaking of the Flyers, I like Vegas -1.5 at home over Philadelphia. The Flyers have really hit the skids. They fired Alain Vigneault earlier this week. They're a team in disarray. This game is in Vegas. The Flyers have not played well on the road. They haven't played well at home, but other than that, they're great.
Jerseys are nice. Yeah.
There you go. If you're into burnt orange, they're the jersey for you. On the NBA hardwood, I like the Mavericks +2 on the road over Indiana. The Pacers have just been too inconsistent. Granted, Dallas has been up and down, but they did get a revenge win over Memphis the other night. Speaking of, we told you last night to take Memphis over the Lakers. And our great guest, and I want to give a shout-out to Pete Medhurst for being with us yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that the Lakers would win because there was no Ja Morant. Memphis ended up pulling away late to win that game by double figures. And now the Lakers have to play the second game of a back-to-back, and they're going to face the Thunder. Now, the Lakers should win this game, but we've watched them melt down in both their games against the Thunder this season, blowing double-digit leads and losing them both. Now, I'm not going to say lightning strikes 3 times in the same place to the same people, but I'm going to take the points in the Thunder at home, which is scary because I don't really like Oklahoma City at all when you get right down to it. But I like the Lakers less. And we watched the Thunder. They beat Detroit on the road. Then they beat Toronto on the road the other night. So look for them to find a way to hang in this one. Then we talked about the Suns are at home tonight. So all you fans of the Arizona Coyotes, like Jim said, there'll be good seats available at the Gila River Arena because there's nobody that's going to be there because the Celtics are coming to town to face the Suns. I like Phoenix to take that one, given the 4.5 points. On the college hardwood, we got a couple more smaller conference teams. Vermont from the American East Conference. I look for them to take down Brown on the road. Brown's played well as an Ivy League team, but they're no Princeton. And then Furman playing at home at the Timmons Arena, right down the street from me, about 15 minutes away. I look for them to give 7.5 points and take down Appalachian State. The Mountaineers 5-4 this season, but they lost their only road game. Meanwhile, like we told you earlier, Furman beat Louisville at the KFC Yum Center earlier this year. The Paladins should come up with a win there. John, in the Army-Navy game, as much as I love that Pete Medhurst was here yesterday, Jeff Monken has done a terrific job with Army. They've actually learned that you can throw the ball, which is something that's a foreign concept most of the time with the triple option. It's going to be a dogfight like Pete talked about yesterday, but I think that Army will end up winning that one, much to the chagrin of the Naval Academy and the Marine Corps.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. It's always good to watch. You had Vermont in there, and Vermont,
Yes.
Again, back to our theory of small teams doing well over the time. Vermont has consistently been a tournament team, and they show up. They play above their pay grade, as the old saying goes. So again, good value for a team that a lot of people don't know a lot about until you look at on Selection Sunday, and all of a sudden you see, wow, well, who are they? Who are these guys from Vermont? And why are they wearing green jerseys? And what are they doing? So there they are.
John, to answer your question, does IUPUI put up 50 points tonight? Boy, you really picked a really sucko game there, didn't you? IUPUI is dead last in the nation in scoring offense with 50.1 points a game, and they're 347th in field goal percentage at 37.7%. To make matters worse, they're 348th by shooting 26.3% from beyond the arc, and they're 344th in free throw shooting. The one plus I can give you in this game is that they're playing Tennessee State, who isn't a whole lot better. I mean, the Jaguars 1-7, the Tennessee State Tigers 1-6. And if you get right down to it, Tennessee State, they're a below average team defensively. They give up 72.4 points a game. It might be a dogfight, but if you look, Tennessee State has given up more than 79 points in 5 of those 7 contests. And one of the 2 games where they didn't was against Fisk, where we're not talking about Carlton Fisk. We're talking about Fisk University. The other was a 10-point loss to Chicago State, which, in case you're scoring at home, Chicago State is not a team that anybody has ever been impressed by. Last season, they were 0-9 before they folded up shop for the year. They were 4-25 the year before. To answer your question, they might get to 53, but that's still more than 50. I don't expect a ton of points in that game, but I would lean towards – and this has got to be one of the weirdest games I've ever heard of being asked about in all the years that I've done this. But, yeah, I think the final score is going to be something like IUPUI 55, Tennessee State 53. So look for IUPUI to go over 50 points, and if you were going to try and take that game straight up, take the 8.5 that somehow somebody has deemed that Tennessee State is worth in that contest. But I also expect it to stay under the 125.5 number, as IUPUI has seen the undergo 7-0 this season.
I'm actually somewhat stunned that it's even on the board, but okay. By the way, for those of you at home scoring, that's not the Purdue that is ranked number 1 in the country. It's a different Purdue.
That's true, John. The unders have been money for IUPUI because, like we said, they're dead last in the nation in scoring offense. If you're looking for a good rock fight, that would probably be the best. Be the top one on the board. As for my top pick of the night tonight, I'm going to stick with Sister Jean and Loyola of Chicago. I can't back Vanderbilt even at home. They've lost 2 in a row. They lost to Temple the other night in overtime. I like the way the Ramblers play basketball. Drew Valentine has done a great job with that team. There's a lot of cohesion. There's a lot of grit. There's a lot of veteran players there. Jerry Stackhouse, I feel bad for him. He's had to try to rebuild that team basically from nothing because he inherited a dumpster fire to begin with a couple of years ago. And then all his high recruits end up leaving early. So look for the Ramblers. I mean, they're very efficient on the offensive end. Look for them to come up with the win here in the Memorial Gymnasium. And
all right.
send everybody home happy.
Yeah.
Unless you're from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, exactly. The Commodores. All right. The Motown Commodores are probably more adept at winning than Vanderbilt. But anyway.
Lionel Richie says hello.
That's right. Thank you, Lionel. Anyway. Thank you guys for joining us this week. We will be back on Monday to talk about what's going on Monday and reflect on what happened over the weekend. Any thoughts real quick? Any final thoughts, Chris, on anything going on the weekend that you might be paying attention to?
If you're looking for the probably offensive bonanza of the weekend, it's probably down at Raymond James Stadium as the Bills and Buccaneers lock up. It's going to be a highly entertaining game. Buffalo gets another crack at Tom Brady, who everybody knows, despite what people tell you on national radio about Bills fans not hating anybody because they're too busy jumping through tables. If there's one person that Buffalo fans hate more than anybody else, it used to be Dan Marino. Then we started beating him before, back in the 90s. If there's anybody Buffalo fans hate, it's Tom Brady. a few years ago he came to Buffalo and said that, it was his least favorite place to go in the NFL because he didn't like the hotels and everything else. Well, I've got news for you, Tom. Just because you went to the NFC, we still know who you are and we still don't like you. But like I said, it should be a very high scoring contest. The other game, it's the Aaron Rodgers I own you game again as the Packers take on the Bears. It'll be interesting to see if Justin Fields can do anything to reverse those facts. But I don't have a ton of faith in a fracturing Bears team, and I have to wonder if it's the end of the line for Matt Nagy.
Anything is possible, as the old saying goes. Well, folks, thanks very much for joining us this week. We will see you on Monday. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Chris, enjoy your time. I will actually be doing the pregame show for the Bucks and the Bills. And it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, tell whoever's got the press passes that they can send some stuff up.
They send it north. Okay. All right, buddy. We'll see you next week. Everybody, have a wonderful, safe weekend. And
if you need to reach me, guys, over the weekend,
yep.
You see my Twitter handle there. Feel free to reach out, and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer any questions you might have.
All right. And with that, we thank Chris for another fun week, and we'll look forward to seeing you all right back here on Just Parlays, 1 p.m. on Monday. Until that time, be safe, enjoy yourself, gang. Have a good week.